Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Building Big with City Skylines, episode 59. I'm Enigmius, and today we're starting a new experiment. We're going the opposite direction from the last experiment. Last time we were trying to build a city that focused on isolated industrial areas so that we could control the education level of the citizens so that they would all be happy to work in the various different specialized industries as well as general industries. And it didn't work. We placed a university, and that was basically the beginning of the end so far as we could tell. We ended up with basically all adults ending up far too educated to be happy working in industrial areas. And we learned a lot. We weren't able to do what we were setting out to do, but that's okay, because it wasn't about achieving a specific goal. It was about seeing how things worked. And we're going to do the same thing here. You can see, if you've ever wondered what a city looks like after it experiences one of the great dissolving city disasters of our time, this is it. This is exactly what it looks like. I went around and first of all, I paused the simulation and I went around and I de-zoned everything, not just the residential, but also the commercial, the industrial, the office, everything. And then I set the simulation to go at normal speed and everything disappeared, and then I went around and I bulldozed all the roads, and that's what it looks like when we do that kind of thing. I was just kind of having fun with a little bit of time lapse. Now we're left with this city that's got a bunch of service buildings that are all disabled because they're cheaper to move than they are to rebuild. We've got almost $1 million left from the last city. We've got 67 citizens left, and I bet you if we were to let the simulation go, that would quickly drop down to 0. And we've got all of these service buildings unlocked that you wouldn't normally have at the beginning of the game. Like, for example, solar power plants, crematoriums, incinerators for your garbage. We've got elementary schools, high schools, university, clinics, hospitals, police, fire, whatever we need. We basically got it. All that's left to unlock are the unique buildings. We've already got some of the unique buildings in the city. We've got our transport tower over here. We've got the first mall over here. We've got everything we need to get our new city up and running. So for now, it's kind of like this post-apocalyptic wasteland of all these service buildings lying around here that's probably going to have some sort of impact on our city. For example, even though this is disabled, actually it's this one down here, this park is complaining that there's no police. There's one over here. This one here, I think that's a high school, is complaining that there's high crime. It's disabled. Squatters are living there. They're peeing all over the walls. It's horrible. Everyone's very unhappy. That might kind of impact the city growth for a little while, but for the time being, I'm not too worried about it. It's not going to be that big of a deal. So on one side, we've got this massive wasteland of abandoned service buildings that we're going to be moving as we develop the need for them. On the other side, we've got new assets. Me and my damn assets. I made a couple new ones. There's this one here that's kind of a 90-degree angle, and it comes up, and then it has a little bit of a contour here that's intended to follow the contour of the circle. Now, these circles are basically, the size is defined by the maximum allowable size in the asset editor, so they're always the same size. And this is one of the isolated district circles that I made when I was setting up the assets for that experiment. I just never used it, so now we're using it. It's got two principal features. One, very dense zoning. We come down here, you can see there's a couple little gaps here. There's a few little tiny little gaps in here. And of course, whenever you've got a circle and you've got things on the outer edge of that circle, there's little gaps in between each sort of block of tiles. But realistically speaking, it's very, very dense. And the way that I managed that was I put the traffic circle underground and then had all of the 6-lane two-way roads coming into the traffic circle from that angle. So it's very, very efficient usage of space. I don't know how it'll be for traffic with these roads here. I don't expect it'll be all that bad, to be completely honest with you. I think it'll be okay. I've already moved one of the unique, I think this is the statue of something, statue of shopping, and we've got some service building, police and fire that we moved in, mainly because they were in the way. It's kind of all it was. We've got some parks moved into these assets, and again, these assets are also very dense in terms of how much space we're using from the space that we're occupying. We've got a couple of little wee tiny gaps in between here where there's a curve, but down here it's basically solid tiles. Now, in a perfect world, this would have matched so that you could bring it right up close to the circle and this gap would be much smaller. What I found happened after I made them is that when you come in and you try and get one of these assets alongside one of its brothers, so to speak, they're just a little bit too big. If I wanted them to fit together properly, I would have to move these end roads here and these end roads here in 2 to 3 tiles, and then the assets would fit together nicely, and then do the same thing over here so that all 4 would fit properly all the way around, and then we would get rid of most of this gap around here. And I realized, you know what, I'm not going to fiddle with it that much. It's not that important. For all of the density that we've already built into it, we don't need to flip out over a gap like this going all the way around. One of the other things, quickly before I forget, is that with these assets and these ones that we're going to look at momentarily over here, when you put them in place, you do have the option always of editing the roads after the fact. You don't have to live with this layout. You can do whatever you want. You can delete some or all of the roads, and in this case, if you wanted to, you could get rid of this road, you could get rid of this road, and then you could join this one and this one and this one and this one, and then this one and this one, and you would basically have the equivalent of one giant Pac-Man asset eating the power pellets, and life would be good. Especially if you join this one, then it would be like Super Pac-Man. You get the idea. Now over here, this one's also laid out in such a way to try and take advantage of as much space as possible. Of course, because they're straight lines, they mesh up very well with the other asset. It's mostly how finicky you are when you're placing them that determines whether or not you have much of a gap along here and whether or not they line up this way. Because this road here, from here to here, is an identical length to this road from here to here. So they match together quite nicely, and the size as well. And again, if we wanted to kind of take advantage of getting this closer, getting rid of this gap, making these smaller, we'd have to make these smaller as well. Otherwise, they wouldn't line up properly with these guys this way, and they wouldn't. It's just, you change one, you have to change them all. I don't want to change them all. So that's what we're starting with now. In the big picture, if we come out all the way here, we've got this circle in the middle, and then we would take 2 more of these and we would kind of flip them, rotate them around so that they fit around here, and then you would have 2 of these, the half circle out like this, and then another one out like that, and then a third and final one out like that. Very, very large space. Roads in place, everything ready to go, dense zoning very, very quickly and easily, because now you're just stamping assets instead of having to redo all these and do all the finicking in a much less forgiving environment where you don't have the grid lines, you don't have all the things that make it as easy as you might like it to be, and where you have to pay for every mistake, in the sense that you get most of your money back if you have to bulldoze something you recently made, but you don't get it all. So you use the asset editor to create stamps. At least you don't have to worry about making mistakes and tweaking and doing all the finicky business. So that's basically how we're going to start. And like I say, we're going to be focusing on high density residential, high density commercial, and office space. We're going to push it as far as we can go, unless it becomes absolutely obvious that people aren't going to be satisfied with anything less than some sort of dirty industry, so to speak, somewhere. And if that's the case, we've got all kinds of space already unlocked. We've got a total of 4 map tiles unlocked that we can make use of to do that industry kind of thing, to make people happy. But realistically speaking, we got enough to keep ourselves going for a while. So the next episode, we're going to take a look at what I did by way of zoning for this area here, what services are in place, what's left of this area here. I don't really think there's any point in trying to consolidate all of these guys. Down here, I consolidated some, the ones that were in the way of what we were trying to do here. We put in just a little temporary cheap road, and we moved the services alongside that, because you have to have a road to place them against if you want to move them. But realistically speaking, we're just going to keep going. We're going to do a little bit of work with the default roads, because this is kind of silly having it looping around. Well, not looping around, but you see bending around, just straight underground. Get rid of the crap. Messing around. I was having so much fun bulldozing the roads that I made a hole in this one. We can fix that. I did the same thing with the train tracks. I bulldozed the train tracks around this station, and then I got carried away and I bulldozed part of the default circle. It wasn't that good to begin with. We can fix that. all kinds of crazy stuff, and it probably will end up looking like a pretty interesting city, at least from the air, on account of all these crazy shapes that we're stamping into place. So, the downloads for the assets that we debuted in this episode, the two of them, this one, and of course, I guess this one technically is the third, will actually be available with any new assets in the next episode. So to kind of do them all at once, we'll get them out to you guys. If you want to be notified when I add that episode, of course, you can always subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media in the information box below the video. Please leave your comments and feedback. Keep in mind, as of the time this video is being made, YouTube comments are broken. People can leave comments, but I can't reply to any of them for some reason. It just doesn't go through. So if you're leaving comments with questions, I apologize if I'm not getting back to you in a timely fashion. As soon as it's fixed, everything will be fixed. It's just the way it works. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.